Next up, and for a bit of nostalgia, we go over to the home of John and Pat Kelly in Lusk, where they are joined by locals Tom McAvoy and Jim Finnegan. I started by asking Tom about his early memories of Lusk village.
So one day, anyway, they were sending them into the dentist in Lusk. You know, Katie Hunt's. There was a place beside Katie Hunt's, on the left of Katie Hunt's, you know. And of course, I was delighted to get going in the Lusk. And I came in anyway with the lads, the whole crowd of lads. And we were playing around the graveyards up there in the church and all that, you know.
Looking down through the grills.
Yeah, the grills and all that.
Yeah,
that's what we were doing. And we couldn't believe the skulls and all that. My grandmother was in with Joni Dolan. That was her grandchild, my cousin. Yeah. She lived with them down in Bellady. And my grandmother came in with her. And she saw me, you see, and she caught a hold of me. And she says, "Come here, look at your teeth. And there's nothing wrong with your teeth," she says to me. You don't go near the dentist. And of course I went, I was, went back up playing and all that. And I was never asked any questions when I come back to Carduff School now. We went to Carduff School. And then anytime you had to go into Lusk, you had to walk into Lusk. You came in for confessions and confirmation, the whole lot, communion, all that stuff. You had to walk in for the lessons and all that, you know.
How long would it take you to get from Grace Dew to the school in Carduff, walking?
I don't know, it was maybe half an hour. Yeah. Right. Sometimes run into the fields and all that.
Take shortcuts.
Yeah, shortcuts.
Especially if it was a crab apple somewhere.
Yeah. That's what we used to do. And that was the way it was done, you know. There was no other way to do it. We had no bicycles. Now, I think we had one or two bicycles at home. My mother and my father had a bicycle. It was Katie Hunt's shop, you know, there. It's just here near the church, near the old church and the graveyard there. It's just there. Well, it's been done up now. It's been changed completely. Yeah, completely. Modernised, yeah, right. Yeah, that was a grand old place. Katie was a grand little woman, wasn't she? Yeah.
Well, she was one of the major sources of contact.
She was a great woman,
the ordinary.
Yeah.
The kids would be always sent to the Katie's for the messages.
Yeah, because,
so that they'd be more innocent and they'd be told what to watch out for and this, that, the other, you know.
Yeah.
And make sure that nobody took anything out of her bag.
No, I know, but she'd look after them, you know, the kind of way. She was a good little woman, you know.
Good woman,
yeah. She lived with her brother there.
George Hunt.
Was it George Hunt? Yeah. Oh. But anyway.
No, George, it was George McNally.
Yeah, I know.
Was their neighbour.
Father McMahon was looking at a subscription off him one time. Father McMahon was the parish priest, and he was looking at a subscription for to give us the harvest Jews, you know, the kind of way, give us something decent. And he said, give you something decent. For what? See, to go ride camels in Egypt, he says to
Because,
Father McMahon, he was
Father McMahon used to go to the pictures every week.
Yeah.
On Saturday.
Where was the picture house?
Dublin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
the fact.
Yeah.
Oh, fairly liberal then.
He was a great character of a man, wasn't he?
He was a dictator, but he was very gentle.
Well, he was the boss. He loved a bit of style and all that, you know,
Next up was John Kelly, and I asked him how far does his memory go back?
I can go back to when I started school first. Yeah. And the school is still up there, beside the church. Yeah. And a gang of us were on the end of a linked line. And it got speed up, you see. And then if you're on the outer edges, you would get thrown off. And I got thrown off into a wall that's still there. And my shoulder was dislocated. And I went home, and Mother said, "What's wrong with you?" "Oh, nothing. Put up your arm." Wasn't able to lift her arm. I dislocated my shoulder.
Yeah.
And that was my first trip then into Dublin. Oh, that was the first time.
Yeah.
The enormity and the stupidity of it, because I felt a bit of an idiot.
What was there trams
What did I? Yeah.
that time?
Yeah.
Yeah, when
But
you
you
went.
see,
Yeah.
it's
That was the first time I saw it.
oh well, my father had a car. He always had a car.
Before we listen to Jim Finnegan, Pat Kelly remembers his mother very, very well.
I remember Mrs. Finnegan.
Yeah.
She was the delightful little lady that when you come out of Mass, she'd be there to shake your hand and wish you a happy Christmas.
right.
And she didn't really know who I was, but she was there to wish you a happy Christmas and
Do
shake
the
your
same
hand.
way
And I
everybody-
never forgot that, because I mean, I'm living here 60 years now, and I never forgot Mrs. Finnegan.
Yeah.
Never forgot her.
embraced you.
She did.
She did,
Yeah. And coming from London, it was unusual, you know, for somebody to make you so welcome.
Jim Finnegan now talks about his memories of Carduff School.
That school at the time was the school where Thomas Ashe taught. That's right. Carduff National School. My mother lived next door, and all down through those years she looked after the school, and she looked after the school teachers and the inspectors when they would come. And she also had lorry men who called nearly every day of the week, 5 days of the week anyway, from Monaghan, who would come and get a cup of tea. They would just get their kettle boiled, make their tea and bring it out to the truck, and they'd have it in the truck. And they called there for, I suppose, about at least 20 years.
Yeah.
Never was a charge around. They just came, and if she wasn't there, if she went away somewhere, which wasn't very often, they would come in and they'd make their tea and they'd put the kettle back on and leave it. The door was never locked. The door
And Jim's
never
home
locked.
was a thatched house over in Carduff. Beautiful little thatch house.
And she reared 11 of us. My father died when I was only a year old.
Oh my goodness.
So she reared 11 of us.
I remember now, your father was very sick when I was going to school.
Yeah,
Now, I don't know whether he died or not that time.
He died in 41.
41.
Yeah,
probably,
1941.
I was still
Yeah,
going to
I don't
school,
remember him at all.
No. But I remember him now. Yeah, you were told, the kids had told in the school, out in the play yard, that Mr. Finnegan wasn't well.
Not to make too much
so
noise.
that's the way.
There was never a key for the back door, for the door. There wasn't any back door, it was just a front door. But there never was a key for it. There was a piece of a clothes peg was tied on a string at the back of the door. And the last person in at night would be supposed to push that into the latch, so the latch couldn't be lifted. But nobody would ever went round to do a head count at night. They just closed it. That's right. There was no lock on the door. There was no real aggressive delinquency at the time.
No, definitely not.
You might have an odd lad here and there, maybe rob an orchard or something like that, but there was never any malicious stuff, or there was never any worry about being attacked in your home or anything like that.
I never remember anything like that.
But there was great camaraderie for people, you know. And
Yeah.
you had to do some... I have big long arms, and I think it's from carrying buckets of water.
Yeah.
I had to carry water for next door neighbours.
Yeah.
I had to carry water for Lizzie Monks. I had to carry water for Mrs. Tolan.
Yeah.
I had to carry water for Maggie Green,
Yeah.
the school teacher
Maggie
next door,
Green,
and myself. And that was carried from the pump, which was about 150 yards down the road, you know. The only running water was that I ran for.
Yeah.
Well, you see, the thing was
you
that
were only-
before me, Pat did it.
Yeah.
And before Pat, I presume Bernie did it, and each one of the brothers
that's
or
the way it
sisters.
was.
But when it came to my turn, there was nobody after me, so I never lost it. I had to keep on going at it.
Yeah. Well,
That's what we had.
we had no pump at home on the farm. When there was a well, as we used to call it, a well, but it was a pipe running out of a field next door to us.
A drainage pipe.
Huh?
A drainage pipe.
A drainage pipe.
Yeah.
And we used to get the water out of that. That was out of Dempsey's field.
Yes, yeah.
Beside us. It was higher than our field. When that dried up, we went up further. It was a well now up in the fields. And it was going into the river. And that's where we used to get the water then. You know, the water was still draining out of the well. There was spring there.
Spring there.
And that's the way you used to carry the water down the... I remember carrying most of the bloody water down the fields, the whole lot of it. And on sticks. You used to put a stick through
the hand of the bucket, and spill half it.
Two of us carrying it, you know, maybe a couple of buckets of water.
Water carrying was a feature of village life then. John Kelly describes his own experiences.
Now, when you go up the road there, up a mile, before you come to the cottages on your right-hand side, there's 13 of them. And that's where I lived. And before that, down in the dip, is Bride's Tree, that's what they call it there, Morgan's. Yeah. And Morgan's had a pump at that time. Yeah. And the pump, the best water that you could ever get, and that's where we always got our water. We'd all run down there and come up, back up. The water was great to drink even at any time. What happened was the land that was connected with them, which would be down towards the dump, the debris dump down there at the moment.
There was a well down there on the way down to that, John, wasn't there?
So,
just after Daly's Gate on the right-hand side. There was a well.
But there was a well in Morgan's on the side of the road.
Right.
And you had to take the water out of it.
Yeah.
But Leonard's from Rush and a couple of the other Harfords, and they had land, they got it from the Land Commission. And it went from the road up the right the way there, right down to Rogertown.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And they all were market gardeners.
Yeah.
And they dug the land, they ploughed the land, and they put potatoes down, and they put all the vegetables and all the rest of it. And they were great because they gave all of the kids up there, including myself, a job, especially
climbing in the summer.
They go wherever the water was, so they went to Morgan's well. But in order to make it more convenient, they put something what's called blue tack.
That was the spray, John.
That was the spray for the
blight.
Potato leaves. The potato leaves, and after that. We never took the water. We never took the water again.
Bluestone.
Bluestone.
Because the whole area would be blue at a certain time of year when it started spraying, and we spraying with a horse.
Yeah.
This was just with a horse.
And the way they take the water out of that well was with a bucket.
With a bucket.
Yeah, there was no other way. They had no pump or anything.
TB was rampant in Ireland in the 40s. John Kelly was one of those who contacted TB and now tells us about that experience.
And I was down to Newtown, Mount Kennedy.
Newcastle.
Yeah. And I was under Dr. Noel Brown. And if you ever read a book called Against the Tide, that'll be the best bloody history you've ever had of Ireland. He wasn't a hero, he was he was impaled hero.
Yeah, he was a great man, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
Well,
he saved a lot of people.
He was a revolutionary type of man. But
because TB was, if anyone got TB, they were shown.
Terrible thing,
Now, it wasn't too bad when you in your time, but I often heard them saying years ago, people were afraid of it.
Yeah.
Because it was the houses, they blamed the houses, the bad houses. There was families died out.
Sanitation was.
Yeah, there were certain families.
If it was here still, they'd blame it on the turf, I suppose.
Yeah, well, turf.
They'd blame it on the turf, but we had it now.
It was bad housing, you know, the kind of way.
It was bad housing.
Like sheds somewhere.
It was bad food and everything.
Yeah, but it was highly contagious.
Absolutely.
I haven't heard.
There's a headstone just outside the back door of the chapel up there, and it's worth reading. And I think there was about 8 children in it.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
the eldest one only lived to be 27.
Yeah.
But 2 children in the family died in the 1 month in the 1 year.
Yeah.
And every one of the children are listed down. All dying from TB.
That was.
Jenkinson.
Yeah, I remember. Well, she used to tell me about that.
It's on the headstone there, you know.
They lived in a house there opposite New Haggard.
That's right.
You know, the house,
That's
it's there still, an old shed, and they lived there.
They lived in that, yeah.
You know, they were her father. The father's was a herd or something for.
But when you
hounds,
when you
they
see
own
the
that.
like of that deaths of people so young, in contrast to that,
Yeah.
there's over a bit from that there's a headstone, and in 1845, which would have been around the time of the famine, the Great
Yeah.
Famine, you know.
Yeah.
There was an old man called Clark and he lived to be 105.
Yeah.
Went into the sanatorium and I never realised until even the last year I found out another two fellows from Skerries were at the same time there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I knew a lad called Enda McGuinness and he was from the Irish Army, up and at it in the morning.
Yeah.
And he'd say, Johnny, will you be up in the morning early? And I say, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, I want you to make the beds. Billy Peters, a neighbour of mine,
Yeah, he was there.
he was there as well. And we would make the beds for the whole bed, the whole,
Yeah.
the six that was in the
Yeah.
ward.
Yeah.
And of course you got great breakfast as a result of that. And the girls, the nurses were taught you with the bees' knees.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything tidy and everything.
It was good training.
To do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were, and it was nearly, it was called the Anchor Hotel, and that may be the reason why it was called the Anchor Hotel, because they were so good. You know, they were. The people from the area were very good. There for the year. Prior to that, the only treatment for it that was working was the isolated lung. And that was, you had to go in through the back and you took off part of your rib. And not alone that, but they used to get, the people who were going for that would get Guinness, a couple of bottles of Guinness.
There was lots of emigration in Ireland in the 40s and 50s. John Kelly now relates his own experience.
That's when I come out, the place was, where I worked before I went away was in building Hillman cars in Santry, Buckley Motors. And McCarran's Motors was beside them. They were another make of car. The fact that not having a job, my godmother, who was from Balbriggan, Sally Brennan, she was over from England on holidays, and she said, "Well, what's your situation, sort of?" Anyway, with conversation, she says, "I'll organise the job for you, and you can stay in our place until you get digs." Well, there's a photograph of me, and if you ever saw desolation in a man's face, or a young fella's face, it was in mine. And I was caught, and it was an excellent photograph, I have to admit. And
John, you're still wearing it.
yeah. London was here, the mail boat. Train then down to what you call it, and my grandmother and her husband, and he had one arm. They were waiting for me on the train. They were great. Probably the bedrock of my life, anyway. Well, just as I can tell you something, that the train journey itself, I was on in a big, long, goddamn carriage, and there was a crowd of lads from west of Ireland, and they were very happy, and they were very destructive, and they broke a couple of windows. Well, you knew that that was the first seeds of discontent that you would see. They were the first seeds, and you would see an awful lot in the Irish that were over there then afterwards, because a lot of them were taken away. My brother, who came after me, got him a job, had a handball, and we were at the gable end of two houses, you know. And we were playing handball, and next minute the guards come around with what do you call it, the squad car. There was a complaint. Yeah, but that's part of the simplicity that was going there. People were very nice there. I played soccer for, well, it wasn't in the district. It was down in what's the Mitcham, no, yeah, Mitcham, that's where it was. But we went to Croydon, and funny, Croydon Airport, Power Sampas had a ground, a smashing good ground there. And I played in the we got to the final of a cup, and I had medals when I come back. And I don't know where they are, probably buried somewhere down in the ditch somewhere. But you see, you never realise the extent of the Irish, how they had.
Pat Kelly now tells us how she came across this Irishman, John Kelly, over in London.
When we went to the dances, it was the women one side and the men the other side. Yeah. And if you saw a man coming over you didn't like, you ran into the toilets. You see?
Yeah, that was the way. Yeah.
Oh, that was
that was the way it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the Irish dancing. My mother came from Tipperary. She was born in 1910. Her name was Bridget Mary Thompson. And they had a farm in Cahir in Tipperary, but times were very bad then. So she went to England when she was 17, and her sisters all followed to England, and they worked in service. And one of our sisters didn't like service, and she jumped out the window and ran away. But we used to come back to Tipperary on holiday every year, and I always said, when I get married, I would live in Ireland. I always said, I don't know, I think it was just there's something different. I just liked the country, and it was just so different from England. I mean, England, you didn't know your next door neighbours, like you just carried on your business and that was it. But Ireland was always so friendly. And so nice, and I liked coming back. And as it so happened, I happened to marry an Irishman, John Kelly, a Lusk man, and it was hard leaving London because I worked in Victoria Street in an office. I was the only girl in the office in the end. There was about 4 men under me, but my boss was really a gentleman. We had to call him Sir. There was no such thing as Mr. It was Sir. You had to call him. And I met John then at the Irish dance hall, which I loved the Irish dances. Then it all happened from there. But John had already, Eric Leonard's garage over the road, Alfie Leonard's garage was vacant for a long time. The Nolan twins were in it, but they went to England. And it was idle for a long time. And John's father and mother said, why don't you come back and we start up a business over there. So we got married in England. John was back here at the time. And I eventually moved over, married in 1961, and came over here the 1st of January 1962. And it was the most dreadful weather that I ever experienced in my life. We lived in the little cottage on the main street, and a big open fire, no water facilities, no toilet facilities, but the pump across the road. Back and forwards. Yeah, back and forwards all the time with the water. And you had to fill up your washing machine then with the buckets of water. But one particular day, I was putting the washing in the dryer. They were flatly dryers at the time. And I went to open the lid to take the washing out, and there was a mouse there. Well, I shut the lid and jumped onto the bed and stayed there till John came home that day, absolutely terrified of it. But I didn't realise till late that it was a thatched house with a corrugated iron on it. Yeah. But I found the Lusk people really nice. It was a quiet little village with little run-down cottages at the time. Oh, well, you see, nobody knew anything about me because I was from London, where a lot of people from around here were all married into, they all knew families and all that. I don't know about so much now, but there was more money around that the kids were involved in this and that and the GAA, the handball, the soccer, the scouts, the cobs, music. That parents now are so busy all the time, and mostly both of them are working.
Since we've become more affluent now, there's not the same dependence on neighbours that there once was. Jim Finnegan explains the importance of good neighbours.
It's when something goes wrong that you really appreciate what the people of this parish are like. They really stand around, and it doesn't matter whether you're a newcomer or an old local man. The people in this parish are absolutely wonderful. All those new people that come in, they really have made a big contribution to every aspect of life in the village. It may have changed some things. Years ago, you were dependent on your next door neighbour for a lift to Mass, for a lift here.
That's right. Yeah.
Or a lorry would pull up at the square in Lusk in 1950 and 40 lads would jump up on the back of it. You can't do that anymore. But that's the way it was then. And nowadays, everyone has their own car, so that lorry is not needed as it was then. So it's hard for the kindness of the people to manifest itself.
As the village of Lusk grows, Jim Finnegan talks about some of the benefits from this increased population.
Well, the benefits are all round in the clubs, and the benefits are there for local businesses, because things are, while we may be in hard enough times, but things are good around here. There's a fair bit of employment in that, you know, and all the sports clubs in the area have benefit.
What does the local population think now of the new arrivals? Tom McAvoy gives his view.
Well, now, them people have become part of the town. You know, the kind of way without a bit
Very
of bother.
very much so, yeah. Very much so, yeah.
Because you meet them all over the place. You know, they're Lusk people now.
That's right.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
That's
you know.
right.
So the next group that comes in will be the same. I hope they are.
Yeah. Yeah, well, but I one of the things that's, I think, very evident is I noticed opening there in the mornings and that, over the years, I find that the youngsters today don't acknowledge the older people very much at all, and I wonder about that. And is it a negative? So,
Yeah, well, I don't find that.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't find that. I find if I'm out cleaning up flower beds or sweeping up, and I say, "Oh, hello, lovely day," people will respond to you.
Would a lot of that not be due to the telephone culture that we have at the moment?
Yeah,
Communications.
Oh yes.
You know,
Yes.
people are walking by and they're on mobiles,
on
and
mobiles.
I used to think for a while, before I got wise, that they were talking to themselves.
that's not even in Lusk. That's all
Because,
over the
because
I think
they were
it's
walking
terrible
along
the way
and
that's
talking,
gone.
and there was no phone visible, but
Yeah.
they had it in their pocket.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's
That's right.
there's a certain spontaneity gone.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you say, oh.
Yeah.
yeah.
They used to have great yarns out here in the garage when John's father was alive.
Yes,
The
Mary
laughing
and
that
Joseph.
used to go on over the petrol pumps with Stokes
Yeah.
and all the older people.
A lot of
you
the
know.
real old wit is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah,
Sharp
they're-
and
they're-
so.
yeah.
You still have that, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that's right.
But then,
I heard a
then
good
nowadays,
one. Sorry,
yeah,
Tom. I heard a good one on the radio this morning, and they were talking about apologies from politicians and this, and how much it meant. And one lad made the analogy. He said, it's like when you're a young lad, he said, and you hit the little lad next door, and you were sent around to apologise.
Yeah.
And he said,